Greetings, my friends. Today I want to raise a topic that I am sure is familiar to each of us who has ever turned to the heavens. It is not just silence. It is total, all-encompassing silence that comes at the most difficult moment. When we cry out and in response there is only emptiness. When we look for a sign and find nothing but the echo of our own hopes. It's the feeling that you are alone, that your prayers are not reaching their destination, that the God you trusted has turned away, or, even worse, simply does not exist. It's a state where you feel abandoned in a desert with no path and no source of water. I know that feeling is unbearable. It undermines your faith and makes you question everything you believe to be true. We are used to thinking of faith as a dialogue. We ask and we receive answers. We seek and we find. But what happens when that connection is broken? What happens when you find yourself in the deepest pit of despair and no one reaches out to you? At that moment, it is easy to give in to anger, disappointment, and resentment. It is easy to say, I can't do this anymore. It's too hard. But it is in this silence that the greatest mystery of faith lies. It is not in always getting answers, but in continuing to believe even when there are none. It is not in always feeling a presence, but in knowing it is there even when you feel alone. Today, we will talk about how to turn that silence from a wall that separates us into a bridge that leads us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and our faith. And I want you to understand, your pain is real, your doubts are normal, but they are not the end of the road, they are part of it. This silence is not a sign of indifference from above. It is a test that helps us realize that our faith should not be in answers, but in God Himself. Think back to moments in your life when you waited for a miracle. Perhaps it was healing, reconciliation, financial prosperity, and you prayed, you fasted, you did everything you thought was necessary, but nothing happened. And at that moment, your faith begins to melt away like snow in the Sunday. You start to think, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe my faith is weak. But that is the wrong path. True faith does not depend on external circumstances. It is an inner state. It is a deep knowledge that even in the darkest moments, even when you cannot see the light, you are not alone. Silence is a time when God gives us the opportunity to stop relying on external signs and start listening to our inner voice. It is a time for self-reflection, for growth, for rooting our faith so deeply that no storm can uproot it. Think of a seed planted in the ground. To sprout, it must pass through darkness and silence. It does not see the sun. It does not hear the birds singing. It just grows. It breaks through its shell, puts down roots, and only then, when its foundation is strong, does it break through to the light. So it is with our faith. It grows stronger in silence. It deepens as we learn to trust not what we see, but what we know in our hearts. And I want you to remember one thing. You are not alone in your silence. Many great people of faith, many prophets and saints have experienced these moments. Job, who lost everything but did not lose his faith. David, who cried out to God in his Psalms, feeling abandoned. Even Jesus on the cross felt this silence, saying, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Their experiences are testimony that silence is part of the spiritual journey, not a sign of its end. So today, we will learn not to avoid silence, but to embrace it. We will learn not to fear it, but to use it as an opportunity for growth. Because in the end, when you come through this period, you will discover that your faith has become not just a belief in words, but a belief in God Himself. It will become unshakable, deep, and strong, like the roots of an ancient tree, and nothing, no silence, no trial, will ever shake you again. My friends, let me tell you a story. Imagine a wise gardener. He had a huge garden full of beautiful plants, and he knew every part of it. One day in late autumn, he picked up a small, unremarkable seed. There was nothing special about it. It didn't shine, it didn't have bright colors, it didn't give off any scent. It was just a seed. And this gardener, with tenderness and knowledge of the laws of nature, placed it in the prepared soil. He didn't leave it on the surface for everyone to see how he cared for it. He hid it from everyone's eyes, deep in the earth. Winter came. Cold winds howled over the garden, and the ground was covered with a thick layer of snow. The trees stood bare, their branches looking dead. Everything around was frozen, and the garden fell into a deep sleep. A stranger looking at this garden might have thought it was empty and lifeless. He might have said, "This gardener has abandoned his work. He has forgotten about his garden. There is nothing here but cold and silence." But the gardener knew that beneath the ground, in the darkness, the most important work was taking place. That little seed, which seemed so helpless, began to change under the influence of the cold and moisture. Its hard shell softened and cracked, allowing it to sprout its first, almost invisible shoots. These shoots did not strive upward toward the sun, which was not there. They went down, deep into the ground, clinging to every clump of earth. They became roots that sought support, absorbing moisture and nutrients that were unavailable on the surface. It was work done in silence, in darkness, in complete solitude. And no one but the gardener knew how vital this work was. It was in this silence and darkness that the seed turned into something more. It built its foundation. It prepared for future growth so that when the time came, it could withstand any winds, stand under the scorching sun, and bear fruit. And when spring came, when the sun warmed the earth and the garden was filled with life again, no one was surprised that a strong, sturdy sprout emerged from the seed. Because the gardener knew that silence does not mean inaction. This parable is a metaphor for our faith. Often in our lives, winter comes. It can be a period of illness, financial difficulties, the loss of loved ones, or simply a deep spiritual crisis. We pray, but it seems that our words fall on deaf ears. We wait for signs, but we see none. We feel that God is silent, and at that moment, our faith, like a seed, is in complete darkness. But it is in this darkness, in this silence, that our faith takes root. When we don't see quick answers, we learn to trust. We learn to rely not on external manifestations of power, but on the inner knowledge that the work is being done. We cease to be superficial, and our faith becomes deep and strong. We put down roots that cling to the truth, to hope, to the very foundation of our being. And when we come through this period of silence, we emerge stronger than ever. Our faith no longer depends on circumstances. It becomes part of us. It becomes what sustains us when everything else falls apart. So, my friends, if you are in your spiritual winter, right now, if you feel that God is silent, do not despair. Remember the parable of the gardener. He didn't abandon the seed. He simply gave it time. He allowed it to go through the necessary process. And in the same way, God has not abandoned you. He is simply giving you the opportunity to grow in silence. He is allowing you to put down roots so that one day you will not merely survive, but flourish and bear fruit that will be a blessing to you and those around you. My friends, we have already discussed that silence may not be a sign of indifference, but rather a time for growth. But let's dig deeper. What if silence is not just a period of waiting, but a completely different, deeper way of communicating? We are used to thinking that faith is loud and obvious. We want to see miracles, hear voices, and receive clear signs. We look for God in hurricanes, earthquakes, and fire, just as the prophet Elijah did. Remember this story? Elijah was a powerful prophet. He saw fire come down from heaven. He defeated the prophets of Baal. He witnessed incredible displays of power. But when he faced real danger, he was afraid and ran away. And where did he find God? Not in a hurricane, not in an earthquake, not in fire. He found him in a still small voice. It was the moment when Elijah had to turn away from everything external, from everything loud and impressive, and begin to listen to his inner voice, a voice that does not shout but whispers. Silence is the time when we must stop demanding and start listening. We are used to being given answers on a silver platter. We want all our problems to be solved in an instant with a single word. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith is a path we must walk ourselves, not a magic spell that will solve everything for us. And on this journey, silence is our most important teacher. It teaches us that true power lies not in loudness, but in depth. When we encounter silence, we have two paths. The first is the path of despair. We can give in to anger and disappointment and say, if you don't want to talk to me, then I won't either. We can close ourselves off, turn away from our faith, and lose hope. But there is a second path, the path of understanding. We can say, okay, I don't hear you the way I'm used to, but I will look for you in a different way. And at that moment, we begin to see the world through different eyes. We begin to see His presence in the little things, in a stranger's smile, in a beautiful sunset, in a kind word that came to us at the right moment. Silence is an invitation to self-reflection. It is a time when we stop relying on external signs and start looking within ourselves. We seek answers not in the heavens, but in our own hearts. We begin to realize that the strength we need is not somewhere far away, but within ourselves. And this realization is the true miracle. It is a miracle that does not depend on external circumstances. It depends only on our willingness to listen and hear. So, my friends, do not be afraid of silence. Embrace it. Use it as an opportunity for growth. Because in the end, when you come through this period, you will find that your faith has become not just a belief in words, but a belief in God Himself. It will become unshakable, deep, and strong. And nothing, no silence, no trial, will ever shake you again. My friends, we have already discussed that silence may not be a sign of indifference, but rather a completely different, deeper way of communicating. We are used to thinking that faith is something loud and obvious. We want to see miracles, hear voices, and receive clear signs. We look for God in hurricanes, earthquakes, and fires, just as the prophet Elijah did. But what do we do when all we hear is silence? How can we walk this path without losing ourselves? I want to share with you a few practical steps that will help you during this difficult time. These steps will not solve all your problems instantly, but they will help you strengthen your faith and find comfort within yourself. 1. Change your prayer. We are used to thinking of prayer as a list of our requests. We say, Lord, give me this. Lord, help me with that. But in times of silence, I urge you to change your prayer. Instead of saying, Lord, give me this, say, Lord, help me understand. Prayer is not a shopping list, it is a dialogue. And even if you feel like you're not getting an answer, keep talking about your doubts, your pain, your fears. Being honest with yourself and with your faith is the first step toward healing. When we honestly admit that we're scared, that we have doubts, we open the door to healing. And remember that God hears not only our words, but also our hearts. 2. Find comfort in words. During periods of silence, it is very easy to feel alone. We feel like we are the only ones going through this, but that is not true. In sacred writings, in spiritual books, in the stories of great people of faith, you will find comfort. You will see that many of them went through similar trials. Remember Job, who lost everything but did not lose his faith. Remember David, who cried out to God in his Psalms, feeling abandoned. Their experiences are proof that silence is part of the spiritual journey, not a sign of its end. These stories will remind you that you are not alone. They will be a light at the end of the tunnel that will lead you to hope. 3. Serve others. When we feel helpless, the best thing we can do is help someone who is even more helpless. When you give a piece of yourself, you receive so much more in return. When you help those in need, you find new meaning. You stop thinking only about yourself and your problems, and it is amazingly healing. You become an instrument in God's hands. You become His voice, His hands, His love, and in that moment you will feel His presence, even if His silence still surrounds you. 4. Be patient. Faith is a marathon, not a sprint. You cannot force growth. Like a gardener, you must trust the process. You must believe that even in the silence, even in the darkness, the work is being done. You must be patient. Don't expect instant answers. Give yourself time. Allow your soul to grow. Like a seed that sprouts in the dark, your faith deepens as you learn to trust not what you see, but what you know in your heart. And one day, when the time is right, you will see the fruits of your patience. You will be stronger, wiser, and your faith will be unshakable. So, my friends, Do not fear the silence. Embrace it. Use it as an opportunity for growth. Because in the end, when you come through this period, you will find that your faith has become not just a belief in words, but a belief in God Himself. It will become unshakable, deep and strong, like the roots of an ancient tree, and nothing, no silence, no trial, will ever shake you again. My friends, we have come a long way in our reflection today. We have talked about silence, about its nature, about how it may not be the end, but the beginning of a new, deeper understanding of our faith. We recalled the parable of the gardener who knew that the most important work takes place in the darkness. We have come to understand that silence may not be a sign of absence, but an invitation to a deeper dialogue with ourselves and with what we call God. And we have learned practical steps to help us get through this difficult time. Now I want us to bring everything we have learned together into a single whole, because faith is not just a set of beliefs, it is a state of heart. It is what we do when things are going well, and more importantly, it is what we do when everything seems lost. It is what we do when we feel abandoned in the desert, when all around us is silence. And it is in that moment that we must be especially strong. I want to end our reflection today with a prayer. If you feel lost right now, if you feel that silence, if your heart is aching with doubt, repeat after me. Not just with your words, but with all your heart. My dear Lord, I come to you today with a heart full of doubts and fears. I feel that you are silent, and I am afraid. I feel lost in this silence. But I ask you to give me the strength not only to endure, but to grow. Help me to see that even in this silence, you are near. Help me to find your will in my heart and your guidance in every step I take. Help me to understand that silence is not a sign of your absence, but an invitation to a deeper understanding. I believe that you are at work, even when I cannot see it. I trust your wisdom and your love, which does not depend on my feelings. And I will keep going because I know you are with me. Amen. And remember, my friends, that your faith is not just what you do when everything is going well. It's what you do when it seems like all is lost. It's your personal, deep commitment. And if this video has inspired you, please subscribe to our channel, give it a like, and write in the comments how you cope with periods of silence. Peace be with you.